Welcome to CFCI Gameday. I'm Sam Holcroft subbing for Chris, along with David Holcroft subbing for Lee, and Chandler Boyd with an upgrade sub of Kirk. And we are here at the Las Vegas Bowl between number 22 Utah and Colorado State. We've got matchups, previews, and more, so let's get started. First off, we have our award winners, so let's talk about the major winners, starting with Marcus Mariota, the winner of the Heisman, Maxwell, and the Walter Camp. David, what makes Marcus so dominant?
He's the right blueprint for what you want in college football. How that translates over to the NFL, we'll see. There's going to need to be some development there. But and having met the man, theoretically, what I really like about him is how humble and respectful he is to everybody. He's a team player, not a me player. When he came back, he won the Heisman, went on that major tour where he's on every talk show, went on Letterman and all that. When he came back, he was more happy to be back with his team than he was doing any of those interviews. He's not a me player. He's a team player. The thing that I respect most about him is the only thing that we're talking about, Marcus Mariota, off the field, is the Heisman Trophy. There's no crab legs or anything else. He's an upstanding guy. Am I right, Chandler?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys think he'll go on to the NFL after this season?
I think after a season like that, there's no way he can't. I mean, you can't throw 2 picks in a season and just not go to the NFL. He said he's going to stay in college for one more year. But I think after his senior year, after everything's said and done, he has to make it. He's too good of a quarterback. He reads the pocket better than anybody in the league. He can feel everything out, and he knows exactly where all of his receivers are at the right moment. He knows the game better than anybody on the team. He knows exactly what to do at exactly the right time, and that's what's going to make him possibly the next Brett Favre.
There's a lot of speculation saying that Marcus Mariota will go out this year for the NFL, but I, myself, think that he will stay another year, try to win a second Heisman that's only been done once by Archie Griffin from Ohio State, and I think it'll help him get better and go on to the NFL. Freshman year, he had 6 picks. Sophomore year, he had 4 picks. This year, he has 2. You know what that means. Next year, big goose egg. Okay, now let's talk defensive. Nagariski and Bednarik winner, Scooby Wright III. Other than his first name, what do you guys like about him?
He's a fantastic fantastic defensive player. He's one of the best defensive players we've ever seen since players like Ndamukong Suh. He reads the line, he reads the defense, he's prominent on the team. It's not very often that you see the best player on the team come from the defense. You see that in Scooby Wright. You see this guy, he plays efficiently, he plays powerfully, and he plays like he means it, and he always shows up.
I agree. And Scooby-Doo does it the right way. Let me read you some facts. 153 tackles this year. 27 tackles for loss, including 14 sacks. Man does it all.
Now we will go to the Home Depot Coach of the Year award winner, Gary Patterson, who led the TCU Frogs to the top before the committee dropped him out after their blowout win against Iowa State. Patterson has made TCU a powerhouse these past few years, but what do you guys think about him?
Oh, Gary Patterson, Coach of the Year, best decision made. I tell you, when you watched TCU back in October, they're giving up 61 points to Baylor, 33. They're giving up a lot of points. The last 2 weeks of the season, they gave up a total of 13. This coaching team, they taught defense. They taught these players how to break it down fundamentally and do it right. And that, my friends, is the Coach of the Year.
You know, and it even shows more if a team is willing to sign a coach through the year 2020 the way they've signed him, There's no way this guy isn't meant to win the Coach of the Year. He's done everything right. He's led this team out of, off and on good and bad seasons. He wins a lot of games, and he's a very high-quality, high-caliber coach to have leading your team.
And another thing, they went from 3 to 6 after the last week of the season. And in the CFCI, which is the College Football Calculation Index, which is what we base things off, guess where TCU landed? Number 3.
Yeah, very interesting about how the Big 12 gets no credit whatsoever in the College Football Committee. If they make a championship, do you guys think that will impact how the Big 12 is seen?
Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And the college committee made sure that that was not only on their agenda, but they made sure they made that point very clear. And Baylor and the Coach of the Year and his staff at TCU felt the brunt of it.
Now on to the Disney Spirit Award winners. Bob Stoops and Sterling Shepard. When 6-year-old Sterling lost his dad to a tragic heart failure, Bob Stoops, who knew Derek Shepard for only a few months, made a long-term commitment to make Sterling a Sooner. Not knowingly that Sterling thought that, nor did Bob. But after many years, Bob made Sterling a Sooner. And Sterling, at least in the past 3 years, has had at least 600 yards receiving and at least 100 yards. And he's at least 100 yards away from 1,000 this season. How do you guys feel about Bob Stoops giving Sterling the chance?
I think the definition of spirit is being able to pursue and do what you love no matter what happens in your personal life, no matter what happens on the field, no matter what happens. Pursuing and performing well and doing what you love and making sure you get to where you need to be able to fulfill your dreams and your goals, that's the definition of spirit. Bob Stoops helped Shepard achieve those goals after the tragic loss of his dad. Bob Stoops almost stepped in as his own dad. He led this kid and he encouraged him and he showed him what it means to have real and true spirit as a football player. And I think there's nobody more deserving for this award.
And I'll add to that, Chandler. Sam, it's a very heartwarming story. Because what Bob Stoops did was not part of his job. It was not a requirement. He just went above and beyond with how he cared for somebody that he didn't have to. And it's a very heartwarming story, and that just speaks to the character that Bob Stoops has. And that's why he's been so successful for so long.
Yeah, when I saw this story on the Bowl Awards, it brought some tears to my eyes because I never heard of this story before, and just the fact that it's the Disney Spirit Award, it made me feel real good. Now we're going to take a short little break, but we will see you after the commercials. Welcome back. Now we'll just preview some of the games for this upcoming bowl week. Rutgers and North Carolina. Rutgers at once was 5-1 and lost 5 of their last 6 to Maryland, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Ohio State. Some pretty tough games. But how do you think Rutgers will compare to this North Carolina team?
Tell you what, here's what I know about the University of North Carolina. They are 119th out of 128 teams in scoring defense. They give up a lot of touchdowns, okay? UNC quarterback Marquise Williams has been sacked 25 times, throwing 9 interceptions. In order for them to have a chance, they need to shore up that line. When you have a bad offensive line and you have a defense that gives up a lot of points, that's a bad 1-2 punch.
Me personally, being a fan of the Big Ten, I'd like to see a Rutgers W and a good close game because, these teams have both been known this year. They give a lot of points. Rutgers lost a huge lead on Maryland. Both teams, they seem pretty evenly matched at mediocrity. But Rutgers, their big thing a lot of their games rely on the performance of their quarterback, Gary Nova. Now, he has a bad game. For example, against a team, he threw 5 interceptions. They lost by 20-plus points. Some teams, he throws for over 450 yards in a game. They win by 30. Rutgers relies on Gary Nova in the same way the United States relies on the government. It's just, it's the way it is.
Sometimes that's really good, sometimes it's not so much.
yeah.
Okay, now on to South Alabama, who is playing in their first bowl game in the FBS. How do you think that they'll do against Bowling Green?
I personally think Bowling Green, for the last couple of years, they've looked solid. They've closed seasons out. They've been consistent, winning decently high numbers compared to previous years. I'm expecting a Bowling Green win.
Here's the funny thing about Southern Alabama. They've had 4 wins by 10 or more points. They've also had 5 losses of 10 or more points. But I tell you, I'm rooting for Bowling Green because they stepped up to the plate. They took UAB's first game of next year against Tennessee. They took their spot. They stepped up and filled it for them. So, go Bowling Green.
Yes, very true. Marshall was only a 2-point conversion stop from being 13-0. They play Northern Illinois on Tuesday. Do you think the Huskies will be the toughest challenge for Marshall this whole year?
Well, that may be, but you said it perfectly. They have 1 loss on their record, and they lost that by 1 point. Having Cato at quarterback, I truly believe he is the best pro quarterback prospect in the FBS today. I even have him above Mariota. The guy is fundamentally sound. He does things the right way. He has good character. I like the kid.
This game is really unique and special because you're watching 2 crazy high-powered offenses go at it. You have 2 insane passing games and 2 not-so-insane passing defenses. I would not be surprised to see an 80-plus point game, and it might be down to the wire. It'll go down to a 70-yard Hail Mary.
Yeah. It's going to be a game that I will be looking forward to on Tuesday. Now on to this game. Vegas is where teams love to play their bowl games, but this is not all fun.
Vegas!
This is not all fun and games here. This will be a blood, sweat, and tear battle between these 2 equal teams. What do you look forward to watching in this game?
Devontae Booker, running back for Utah. 1,350 yards this year, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. I want to see that man run the ball.
I personally want to see the Colorado State win. They had a spectacular season. Compared to all these past years, they've been killing it this year. They were looking to close it out. They have a powerhouse offense, crazy good receiving core, and a better quarterback. Their defense is solid too. Utah defense is solid, but I think the Colorado offense is just that much better.
Very interesting. Colorado State losing Coach Jim McElwain to Florida. Could that possibly stop them?
Good hire for Florida.
It was a good hire for Florida, but a bad loss for Colorado State. Let's see if the Rams can get it done. We'll see you after this brief break.
I snorted.
We're back, and now it is time to judge the committee. Did they get the top 4 right?
Yeah, you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
All right. I personally think if I would have been the head of that committee, it would have been a much different top 4 teams. My top 4 is much different and might come as a surprise to a lot of people. My number 1 team would have been Oregon Ducks. In my opinion, easily the best team in the nation. They will go on to win the national title. If they don't, someone's getting paid a whole lot of money to make sure that doesn't happen. My number 2 team is Alabama. Naturally, you have a good SEC team, and no matter how much the SEC gets favored in titles and all that stuff, they're still a good team. Even though we might be seeing their decline within the next couple of years, we're still seeing a solid Alabama team. My number 3 team, however, would not have been the undefeated Florida State. My number 3 team would have gone to one of the 2 Big 12 leaders. Baylor or TCU. Those are two teams that are very evenly matched, very high caliber offenses and high caliber defenses, two very well coached teams that I think should have gotten the number 3 spot. Number 4 also did not belong to Florida State, and here's why. They may have been undefeated. They may have the players, they may have the coach. But the undefeated team that's getting by against teams like Boston College, Miami, Georgia Tech even, by field goals. They barely beat the Notre Dame team that got blown out by USC. Blown out of the freaking water. They barely beat that team.
I tell you what, you're standing in for Kirk, good old Herbie, and you know he went to Ohio State. They're Buckeyes. You have something in common with him. You're both nuts. Okay. The college football committee, here's the problem I have with them. They said there's a new slate every week and there's no foresight into what's coming. Why not? What? So you can make a total bonehead decision and then go, oh, wait, I have another week to make it up. I don't like that. Okay? Sometimes you can see something coming. Okay? Oh, I see it. Oh, I see it. Oh, I moved. All right? You can see it coming. One thing I've learned in my profession is you can have 1,000 attaboys, but you have one oops, and that gets rid of all those 1,000 attaboys. One oops. TCU going from 3rd to 6th is an oops. I don't care if you say there's a clean slate every week or not. I don't care if you say, well, this last week, the Baylor, now they have something to compare, and blah, blah, blah. No. It's an oops. It's an oops. And they're always talking about eye test. Eye test. Eye test is nothing but human opinion. Okay? Opinion, whether you're biased or not, is flawed. And when whether you have 12 people or you have 100 people, it's going to be flawed. That's why I support the CFCI, because it's an actual calculation. It doesn't take, like the BCS used to do, doesn't take into consideration the opinion of all the coaches, doesn't take in the opinion of all the press, the media. It's purely a calculation on what happens on the field.
Yes. But Chandler, don't you think at the end of the day, winning games is more important than how you won them?
I actually don't think so.
See, I have Florida State as my number 1 because at the end of the day, when the night comes, and this is Vegas, okay? You party at night here in Vegas, okay? So at the end of the day, when you're having fun like this, what matters is your record. I understand strength of schedule, and the CFCI takes into account for that. But you have to win your game some way, somehow. I don't care if you get out to a 40-point lead in the first quarter, or if you come back with a late second field goal in the fourth quarter. You win the game. Look at Marshall. Marshall's 11-1. They have one loss by 1 point. And they're what? Ranked 24th? Or not even ranked anymore?
Ranked now.
Okay, with the committee. The CFCI, let me go to my sheet here, has them 22nd. 22nd, just based on the numbers. Okay? That takes into account that strength of schedule. Okay? That's why they're not higher. But 11-1 game control. Okay? That's why they're not higher. But I would honestly say Nebraska would definitely not be in my top 4. And I'll tell you what, Bo Pelini, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Okay? You've been bashing on Husker fans for years. If you have any respect for yourself at all, please take Papuchis and Beck with you.
Well, do you guys think that there's any better alternatives than this college football committee?
Go off the CFCI. Here we are. We have it right here. Florida State, number 1. Alabama, number 2. TCU, number 3. Oregon, number 4. Where's Ohio State? Oh, behind Baylor at number 6.
You know, me personally, I think Florida State, Alabama, and Oregon are the clear-cut top 3 teams. Florida State, I mean, at the end of the
Besides
day,
your prejudice,
they're still winning games.
I understand what you're saying.
Even if they're winning, they're beating 6-6 teams, 7-5 teams, 4-8 teams by
slim margins.
slim fractions of points.
They could have helped themselves out by having a better non-conference schedule.
I think
Yeah.
the best thing, that's another thing, college football playoff did not really compensate for. You look at, Ohio State losing to 6-6 Virginia Tech. I was early in the season against a good Virginia Tech team ready to kick off the season with a bang.
Great special teams.
Great special teams. Ohio State, they had to find themselves, they had to find their identity without their quarterback, Braxton Miller, getting hurt preseason with a neck injury. They still had yet to find their identity. They found it in Jared. They found it in JT Barrett. They had 1 week to change their offense that they had built up around this star,
Potential
Heisman winner. And JT Barrett steps up, and you find that the second string is better than the starter. When you find the buried treasure on the team, that's when they hit their cash. That's when they hit gold.
What do you think is the bigger treasure, Barrett or Jones? Now stepping in for Barrett when he gets injured with a season-ending injury, steps up and blows out Wisconsin when Wisconsin was a favorite.
Anything back with Jones. If you remember, back in the spring game, Jones was projected over Barrett as the backup to Braxton Miller. He's had his reps. He's ready to go. They won't hold anything back.
I think it is a very rare thing where you see the first 3 strings of quarterback almost all in the same plane of play on the field. When it comes to game day, you look at quarterbacks, completions rates, stats, all that stuff. That might be different from player to player. But what you don't find is 3 players that know the offense so well they can run it flawlessly. They could have ran a 3-quarterback system if Braxton Miller would have been contained, and it would have worked. Without a shadow of a doubt.
And sorry to interrupt you, but you have to give credit here to Urban Meyer because he has a history of developing great quarterbacks. I mean, look at all the quarterbacks that came out of Florida. You can name them down the line, Tebow and all of them. So he has a history of doing this. But to your original question about is there a better way to do it? The CFCI in my eye, is the best way to do it because it takes out the eye test. It takes out the human bias. It takes that away and all that. And according to the CFCI, UAB, which is a nice transition, UAB was ranked 80th out of 128. I mean, that's not bad. I know it's less than half, but that's still better than a North Dakota State, presumably.
Okay, now transitioning. UAB has shut down. Going 6-6 this year, 4-4 in conference, and almost upsetting undefeated Marshall when they were upset. And Chancellor Ray Watts never even talked to the alumni or the board of directors before shutting down. Guys, how do you feel about this?
Shutting down a football program is one of the wildest things someone can do in the college sports world. No matter what you're good at in sports, a football team has always been like a traditional thing for a college to have. It's always kind of been there. And UAB shutting their football program down after one of the better seasons they've had in a while, after everything they've been through, and I mean they're just gonna cut it. They're just gonna snap it off.
And here's what they've gone through: over 18 major surgeries in the past year for what these kids have spent their sweat, blood, and tears on the field for. They went 6-6 overall this year, 4-4 in conference. They went from bowl eligible for the first time in forever, bowl eligible to eliminating their program in 3 days. Ray Watts, the president, never consulted when he was making this decision, never consulted with the alumni. He never consulted with the boosters. In fact, Dan Heyer, who has committed millions to the university over the years, said he'll never give him a cent again. And in his words, this was quote unquote so humiliating.
You have, and Ray Watts, they're doing everything they can to keep this. They're doing everything they can to keep this program, and he's not budging. You have players getting up in the middle of team meetings, weeping and bawling and screaming at the team. They want this. They want this more than anything, and the fans want this more than anything.
The
and
fans,
they have
the boosters,
rallies.
they have a lot of support. And let me tell you something about the CFCI. Guess who's ranked 128th in the nation? SMU. Put it in perspective, SMU to UAB. SMU had to cut their program because of sanctions. UAB is doing this willingly. Willingly. If they ever try to come back, if they don't do it now, nobody will want to go there.
Yeah. Do you guys think that there's something going down in Birmingham that we do not know of with Watts?
Oh yeah.
I think there has to be. You can't just make a decision like that.
And without budging either.
And you watch him when he talks about it. He's an unanimated mannequin of a man when he talks about this. He just
Lacks empathy.
It's almost like he's doing this. I don't know. Maybe there's a monetary gain behind it, but there doesn't seem to be. They're losing. That huge booster. There's nothing.
Well, of course it's monetary. That's his excuse. The numbers don't look right. Yeah, what about the kids? Do they look right?
It's very true. There's an there's an NCAA FBS rule that states in a team's inaugural year in the FBS from FCS to FBS, they cannot go to any postseason. Georgia Southern went 9-3 this season in its inaugural year in the Sun Belt. Would you guys have liked to see Georgia Southern play in a bowl? And how do you feel about this rule?
The rule stinks, and yes, I would have loved to see them in a bowl. They're one of the few teams in all of college football this year to have two running backs have over 1,000 yards for the season. That's pretty rare, my friends. And I'll tell you what, North Dakota State, you deserve to come to the FBS. I encourage you to join the Big 12, to go through that season, to win your division, to have a championship game and win that, and go undefeated, be ranked number 1 overall, and have no chance of the playoffs whatsoever next year because of this rule. Wow. The NCAA got to go.
Me personally, if I'm putting this as promptly and bluntly as I can put it, Georgia Southern got screwed. And, a 9-3 season, I don't care what your name is. I don't care where you're coming from. I don't care how long you've been in any league. 9-3 season is pretty dang good for your first year
Bowl bound.
coming in. A 9-3 season, and you're trying to tell me that doesn't deserve a bowl. You're not trying to tell me that you might say, hey, maybe this rule isn't so great. I understand where the rule comes from. It's a historic thing. Teams join the FBS, and it's 3-9 season. It's never that great. But a team comes in and does this?
Yeah, let me interrupt
insane.
you. Let's just look at their resume. 9-3 overall, 8-0 in conference, number one in the country in rushing, 381.1 yards per game. The 2,000-yard rushers, and they didn't run so much because they didn't have a decent quarterback. He actually completed 56% of his passes. Now, that's nothing to sniff at. This is a good team. This is a bowl-bound team. This rule, NCAA can stick it where the sun don't shine.
If this team keeps being successful, we might see some more Sun Belt following soon. Louisiana Lafayette might jump on that train too.
Yeah. And also, they lost to Georgia Tech and NC State by a total combined of 5 points. If they have one more drive and score on those last 2 drives and win those games, they're 11-1 and not bowl eligible.
But then are you looking at a Marshall?
Yeah, but
11-1 doesn't say much in the CFP, does it?
No.
But
it's a
we're talking about this rule.
Yeah.
We're talking about this rule. That would be good enough to get that rule eliminated. So North Dakota State, perhaps that's why North Dakota State has not joined the FBS, because they don't want that 1 year of bowl ineligibility.
But I'm saying, let's say this rule didn't exist and they did go 11-1.
Then we'd have a different argument on that.
Yeah, we'd have a different argument.
We saw the CFP. I mean,
See, that's the human element that you need to get out of it.
Okay, there's many players to watch this week. So, David, start it off. Choose a player.
Well, I said he's the best pro quarterback prospect in the game. Marshall's quarterback, Rakeem Cato. I want to see him just light it up. I want to see what he does. This is his audition for the NFL as far as I'm concerned.
my first pick this week to watch, you got to watch Nevada quarterback Cody Fajardo. He is one of 2 quarterbacks in the history of the league to pass for 9,000 and rush for 3,000. Only other quarterback in the history of the school, in the whole history of the game to do it, Colin Kaepernick, playing for the same school. Now, you might say, oh, he has 3 years as a starter. Oh, he's got, this offense under his belt. He's got this team locked down. It's all about him. 2 people have done this in the history of the sport. You'd think that's a pretty hard statistic to achieve, no matter what your circumstances are.
Quarterback Brandon Doughty leads the league in passing yards and touchdowns of Western Kentucky and is 9th in completion percentage. Don't be surprised if he throws all over the Chippewas defense in the Bahamas. Pick another player.
I go with San Diego State's halfback, Donnell Pumphrey. Let me read you the stats. 1,755 yards rushing this year. That's 3rd in the nation, with all the hype of Gordon and Coleman and our beloved Amir Abdullah. Who's the best of those 3? Okay? This guy's not getting any hype because he plays at 10 o'clock Central p.m.
My second pick would have to be Gary Nova from Rutgers, their starting quarterback. As I mentioned before, watching him isn't going to be about seeing a 500-yard passing game. Watching him is seeing if he does well, they're going to win that football game. If he does poorly, they're going to lose that football game. It's not very often that you see an entire game riding on one player's performance. That's how their season's been, and I don't expect the bowl game to be any different.
And just for clarification, if I had a 3rd choice or if I was made to go with a defensive player, it'd be Scooby-Doo.
Scooby.
Right, the 3rd.
Even though he doesn't play this week, but and I also have a wide receiver Rashard Higgins from this game. I mean, listen to all the fans of Colorado State, and he will be a huge contributor tonight against Utah. Higgins, a Blinkenhoff Award finalist, is only 16 yards away from Blinkenhoff winner Amari Cooper from Alabama, and he also has 3 touchdowns less than Cooper. Higgins, an underestimated wide receiver, and we'll be back in a little bit for our picks.
See, you never heard my...
Welcome back, and now it's time to do our game picks.
Oh.
Starting at the New Orleans Bowl between Nevada and Louisiana Lafayette.
I think you're going to see a Nevada win. They're a clear-cut winner. I think they're just overall a better team. Cody Fajardo's coming to win.
Not so fast! Louisiana Lafayette by 6. They're 26th in the nation in rushing. They're going to ground it and pound it.
I think Lafayette will win by 7. The New Mexico between Utah State and UTEP.
I'd like a Utah State win. I did some research. Utah State has a solid, hard-hitting defense. I mean, they held Colorado State, of high-scoring, high-caliber offense, to 16 points.
Yep, they are the 21st best scoring defense. So they don't give up a lot of points. I got Utah State as well. Good pick, Chandler. And I got them big by 16.
I got Utah State by at least 20 for the same reasons that you guys think.
No love, UTEP!
The famous Idaho Potato Bowl on the blue turf with a young coach leading Western Michigan against Air Force. What do you think will happen?
I think it's going to be Air Force because they have the camouflage. No, I'm kidding. They have...
You don't see it coming!
They've been looking really good this year. They need this win to establish themselves as a football team over these last couple of bad seasons.
Good pick. Air Force, big, by 10. They're 8th in the nation in rushing. It's all about the run game.
Air Force by at least 14. I just don't think that Western Michigan, with its young coach, has the experience. South Alabama taking on Bowling Green in the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery. What do you think will happen?
I think it's got to be Bowling Green. I think they're a better team, and South Alabama, this is their very first bowl appearance. So not only is Bowling Green gonna have the experience, but South Alabama's just kind of disadvantaged here.
You know I'm rooting for Bowling Green, but as a state trooper once told me, not so fast. I got Southern Alabama by 1 point over Bowling Green. Look at the running backs. Houston, 4.9 yards per carry. Johnson, 5.6 yards per carry. Those two are going to be night and day, and just cut them up.
I have South Alabama by 2 with a last-second field goal, down by 1 to win the game. Now on to Monday's game between BYU and Memphis playing in the Miami Beach Bowl.
I gotta take BYU. They're kind of like Ohio State in the sense that they've learned to cope with their injured quarterback. They got 4 straight W's to end the season. Their quarterback got injured and they hit the curve. They figured it out.
You know, it's kind of interesting. Chandler and I both had one date with Kate Upton. And you know what she said to him, but not to me? Not so fast! Memphis by 5. Memphis has 3 losses that are really close losses. They're better than their record.
I think BYU will blow Memphis out of the water and beat them by 17. Now on to Tuesday's game between 12-1 Marshall and 11-2 Northern Illinois in the Boca Raton Bowl. What do you think will happen?
I think this is going to be an insane game. All offensive. I don't think we're going to see any defensive stats on the board whatsoever. I personally have to pick NIU. Marshall's late season losses to Western Kentucky and close calls with Louisiana Tech, they show that they're not really here to close out the season. I think NIU's ready to take the win from the good team.
Well, as the tortoise said to the hare, not so fast. I got Marshall, 112 to 100 over Northern Illinois. Think about it. Marshall has 1 loss by 1 point. They're not losing this one.
Okay, you know we're playing football, not basketball, right?
I can see it. I can see a triple-digit score.
I think it'll be a very high-scoring game, but I think Marshall will get a last-second Hail Mary as it was tied.
And they kicked the extra point, which is the 1 point I was talking about.
And also on Tuesday night, San Diego State not having to travel too far against Navy in the Poinsettia Bowl in San Diego.
I think this one's almost too easy to pick. I mean, you have San Diego State. It's a home game. Let's all be honest here. It's a home game. You never, ever see home field advantages, especially in bowl games. I mean, on the other side, you have Navy. They've lost too many important games. They probably should have beaten a weaker Notre Dame team.
Yeah, and what was the whole discussion with the college football committee is how would this team do against this team in a neutral site? Whoa! Is this a neutral site?
Not even close.
It's supposed to be.
Good pick, San Diego State.
Yeah, I also think San Diego State will win at this home game, but only by 7. I have Navy coming in clutch.
I got them by a field goal. They are the 14th best scoring defense in the land. They don't give up a lot of points, especially not at home.
On Wednesday, Central Michigan against Western Kentucky in the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl.
I got Central Michigan. You know, they had a bumpy start to the season, but they're going to finish strong.
You know, as the jealous Ford Mustang once said to the Chevy Camaro, not so fast! I got Western Kentucky, and I got them big. I got them by 13 points. Let me tell you why. Western Kentucky is the 6th best scoring offense in the nation. That puts them up with Oregon and some really good competition. I got Western Kentucky.
I also have Western Kentucky by 3, but I think Daughtry's going to throw all over the Chippewa defense.
You gotta agree.
That night, Fresno State takes on Rice in the Hawaii Bowl. What do you think will happen?
I got Rice. Fresno, I mean,
Oh my God.
They're barely bowl eligible. they got in by the skin of their teeth, barely winning some end season games. I think it's gonna be Rice.
As my nose once said to my finger, good pick. Good pick. Rice by 9.
I like that.
Fresno State. They just come to me. Fresno State is 101st in the nation in scoring defense. Not too good.
But look at who Fresno State had to play. Boise State twice.
Nebraska.
Nebraska scored like 50 plus on them.
Bye, Pack.
I got Fresno State by 9. The day after Christmas, we have a triple header, starting with Illinois versus Louisiana Tech in the Heart of Dallas Bowl.
I got Louisiana Tech. They competed hard with Marshall, with a very good Marshall team. I think they got so close to taking that title from them. I think they're going to take it out on Illinois.
I totally agree with you. That's a good pick as well. I have Louisiana Tech by 14 over Illinois. Keep in mind that Louisiana Tech is 13th in scoring defense. So I've been talking about the rush and how many points you allow on defense. Louisiana Tech is 13th out of 128. They get the win.
I think Illinois is going to come into this game unprepared. I mean, Illinois got in because they beat Northwestern that last week of the season. If Northwestern would have won, then Northwestern probably would be playing this game instead of Illinois. But I think Illinois is not prepared. Louisiana Tech by 21. Then Rutgers against North Carolina in the Quick Lane Bowl. What do you think will happen?
I think this game could go either way, but honestly, I got to pick Rutgers because it all rides on Gary Nova. He's not a bad quarterback, but it all rides on Gary Nova. I think he's going to show up this week, though.
Good pick. I like Rutgers as well over North Carolina. I have them by 9 points. University of North Carolina is 119th in scoring defense.
You said that already, but thank you for repeating.
There you go.
And I have to agree with Chandler that Nova is the key to Rutgers. And Rutgers is very underestimated. They went 5-1 in their first 6 games and just had a tough schedule from there on out. But I think Rutgers will win by 10. Then lastly, on Friday night, NC State versus UCF in the St. Petersburg Bowl.
I got UCF. I think their defense is better than NC State's offense. I think UCF is just a better team. They're a defensive killer. They're going to put NC State down.
Great pick. UCF by 12. UCF is 9th in scoring offense this year.
I think UCF, a lot of people said that how will UCF be without Blake Bortles leading the team after their upset against Baylor last year in the Fiesta Bowl. But I think UCF has been doing very well this year without Blake Bortles, and I have them winning by 13. Now onto the bowl that really has people making big money since we're in Vegas. Both teams, Utah and Colorado State, will play their hearts out tonight. I have Colorado State by 10, but Chandler, who do you have?
I have Colorado State. Here's some stats for you. They average 498 yards per game. They are 13th in the nation. They're the 13th best offense. They were one heartbreaking loss from the conference title. Coming out of the Mountain State with 498 yards per game. That's astonishing. I think Colorado State's got it in the bag.
I already said that Colorado State will win by 10.
Okay. So here's the deal. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Well, we're in Vegas. So I went down to the local zoo to get a ram. And they said it was $1,200 to rent him for an hour. $1,200. Well, we're in Vegas, so happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas. Don't tell my wife. Here's a Dodge Ram for you, a Dodge Ram for you, and a Dodge Ram for me. Go Colorado State!
Well, that's all we got for now. We'll see you for the Holiday Bowl next week between Nebraska and USC. And from the crew of CFCI, Merry Christmas.